Number 8. Joel Greenberg. Joel Greenberg grew up in a wealthy and well-respected family of overachievers from Central Florida, but he seemed to lack the direction and drive that made them successful. After dropping out of college, he started a radio show, but he eventually gave up his dream of becoming a radio broadcaster and started an advertising agency instead. In 2016, he became the Seminole County tax collector. Greenberg's campaign depended largely on corruption allegations against the previous office holder, but ironically, he dove straight into abusing his position. The married father of two met several young women through a sugar daddy dating website and made driver's licenses for several of them. He used the tax collector office credit card for personal purchases, including an autographed Michael Jordan photo. Greenberg spent over $200,000 of the department's money on Bitcoin and used another $90,000 to install a server room at the office to benefit his cryptocurrency activities. Greenberg also created needless job positions with comfortable salaries for his friends. During his re-election campaign in 2019, he mailed a letter containing false misconduct allegations to the school where the opponent running against him worked as a teacher. Authorities traced the letter to Greenberg and subsequently charged him with stalking. The incident sparked a deeper probe into his activities behind the scenes, and he was ultimately charged with dozens of federal crimes including identity theft, child trafficking, violating driver privacy protection laws, unlawful use and production of ID documents, and wire fraud. While out on bond, he violated his travel restrictions and showed up at his in-laws' house uninvited in search of his wife, who was trying to get away from the stress at the couple's home. His mother-in-law called the police and he was taken to jail. Greenberg agreed to cooperate with a federal investigation of his friend, U.S. Representative Matt Gaetz. He took a deal and pleaded guilty to 6 crimes, landing him an 11-year prison sentence. Needless to say, his short-lived career as a public official is over. Number 7. Brenda Gibson. In 2021, auto repair shop owners James and John Dyke from Warren County, Pennsylvania, learned that their accounts with one of their long-term suppliers were overdue. At the time, their books were being handled through a notary business owned by 57-year-old Brenda Gibson. They asked her about the discrepancy, and she allegedly told them to work harder to pay their bills. When the Dyke brothers took a closer look at their accounts, they discovered unauthorized and fraudulent transactions totaling over $135,000, including checks made out to Gibson and her business. Around the same time, Deerfield Township officials reviewed their accounts and payroll, which Gibson also managed, and discovered fraudulent transactions in excess of $300,000, as well as faulty bookkeeping. Gibson was charged with 13 felonies and 3 misdemeanors, but her legal problems were far from over. In early 2022, she was accused of stealing over $400,000 from the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation. For a nearly 2-year period starting in 2020, Gibson accepted payments from 714 customers for sales tax, registrations, and titles. However, Gibson failed to forward due fees to the DOT. She was then hit with even more criminal charges and ultimately pleaded guilty to 11 felonies. At her sentencing, her lawyer urged for leniency, claiming that Gibson struggled with a methamphetamine addiction and spiraled out of control after her mother passed away. But the prosecutor pointed out that Gibson adamantly denied drug use until just days before her sentencing and said that her real addiction was stealing money. Gibson apologized to her victims in court and vowed to do what it takes to repay what she stole. But she also said that she didn't mean to harm anyone and that she's done good things within the community, which begged the question of whether she was truly willing to accept accountability for her actions. After all, it's hard to believe that someone could steal more than $800,000 without realizing that they're causing harm. Gibson will have a long time to reflect on her actions while she serves her 4 to 13-year federal prison sentence, and hopefully she'll have a more realistic take on her behavior by the time she's released. Number 6. Robin Nasetta. While working as a child protective caseworker in Arapahoe County, Colorado in 2022, 40-year-old Robin Nasetta became upset with City Council member Danielle Jurinsky after she verbally slammed her partner, former police chief Vanessa Wilson. The next day, someone anonymously called social services claiming that they saw Jurinski abusing her 2-year-old son. Authorities found no evidence of wrongdoing on Jurinski's part and began to suspect that Nasetta somehow orchestrated the false complaint in retaliation for the councilwoman's remarks about Wilson. They traced the call to Nasetta's phone and found other evidence to suggest that she was out for revenge. She was charged with 1 felony count of retaliating against an elected official and a misdemeanor count of false reporting. Following her arrest, Nasetta resigned from her position. Numerous parents soon came forward with allegations that Nasetta had wrongfully removed children from their homes. They filed 2 lawsuits against the county, and Jurinski is suing Nasetta on her own behalf. So far, Jurinski's lawyer, Elliot Singer, has filed documents on behalf of at least 40 people as part of a request for a class action lawsuit. Speaking with local station KDVR, Singer said that many of the alleged victims are accusing Nasetta of trying to take away their kids because they rejected her romantic advances. One woman claims that she was lured to Nasetta's home, where the caseworker allegedly tried to seduce her. She was unreceptive to the advances and is accusing Nasetta of trying to permanently remove her child from the home as punishment for saying no. Some of the plaintiffs allege that Nasetta gave false testimony in court and altered statements to make parents look guilty. If it's true, then it means that her actions went directly against the department's stated goals of strengthening families and ensuring the safety and permanency of the children it serves. The cases are ongoing at the moment, but Nasetta continues to maintain her innocence. Number 5. Leon Price. In 2020, Kelly Tichenel called the 911 emergency dispatch in Greene County, Pennsylvania, and requested an ambulance for her mother, Diana Kronk. The woman was jaundiced and incoherent. She was also bleeding, and she hadn't gotten out of bed for days. The dispatcher, Leon Price, asked Kelly to make sure Diana didn't refuse services if an ambulance was sent to her location. Kelly wasn't at her mom's house yet, but emphasized the urgency of the medical emergency, stating she's going to die if she doesn't go to the hospital. But regardless, Price told Kelly that she needs to call back once she got to Diana's house to confirm that her mother would accept medical help. However, Diana wasn't in a condition to vocalize her agreement, and Price allegedly never sent an ambulance. Kelly was unable to lift her ailing mother into her car to drive her to a hospital, and she ended up dying the next day from internal bleeding. In 2022, Kelly filed a civil lawsuit against Price as well as the county and 2 other dispatch employees. The complaint alleges that emergency medical services were available when Kelly called 911 and that Price's actions were a direct and/or proximate cause of Diana's death. Price is also facing criminal charges including involuntary manslaughter, reckless endangerment, official oppression, and obstruction of the administration of law or other government function. Number 4. Kelly Simpson. In August 2022, police in Charlotte County, Florida, were tasked with investigating the disappearance of an endangered teenager who stormed out of his family's house after being accused of stealing $100. He left without his phone, medication, or bank card, and he failed to show up at school the next day. Deputies visited a residence in Punta Gorda where the young man was last seen. The people they spoke with confirmed that the teen had been at the house, but said that a woman named Kelly picked him up. The name rang a bell to people who knew the teen. They told investigators that he constantly talked about one of his school teachers, 31-year-old Kelly Simpson, and that he sometimes brought her coffee. Law enforcement went to Simpson's house in Port Charlotte and questioned her about the situation. She allegedly admitted to picking the young man up, but claimed that she dropped him off at a gas station and hadn't seen him since. She initially refused to let the deputies inside to look around, but relented when they told her she could be charged with a crime for refusing to let them search her home. A few moments later, she went inside and sent the teen who'd been hiding in her house outside. He reportedly acknowledged that he had Simpson pick him up and bring him to her house. When he showed her a social media post from the sheriff's office seeking information about his whereabouts, she allegedly told him that they would deal with it the next day. The teen then spent the night at the woman's home. Simpson was charged with interfering with the custody of a minor, and she's on administrative leave from her job pending the outcome of the case. Number 3. Melissa Roberson. As a caseworker for Connecticut's Department of Children and Families, Melissa Roberson's job duties included supervising visits with families who had open cases with the agency. While overseeing a visit between a mother named Kazinia Hall and several of her children at a DCF location one day in 2022, the police arrived to carry out an arrest warrant on Hall. Roberson allegedly rushed Hall and her kids out the back door, leading them into her state-issued vehicle. She then dropped Hall off at an intersection several blocks away. According to a police report, Roberson told Hall not to go back to the area until the police left. She then drove the kids to their foster homes and returned to the building where she was arrested for hindering prosecution. The police who had shown up to arrest Hall were carrying out a warrant that accused her of trafficking one of her children. Roberson knew about the allegations and had been advised by her superiors not to leave the building with Hall. When she did, DCF officials called her repeatedly in an attempt to get her to return. She declined to speak with law enforcement after being taken into custody, and her reasons for helping Hall are still unclear. In addition to facing criminal charges, Roberson was suspended from her job and is under investigation by her employer and the Hartford Police. Number 2. Christmas Tree Controversy. As the 2022 holiday season rolled around, staff members at the Dedham Public Library in Massachusetts decided not to display Christmas trees at its 2 locations out of a concern that it would make people uncomfortable. They also avoided mentioning Christmas or any Christmas-related events on the library's Facebook page, limiting their holiday-related talk to the spirit of giving. The newly implemented policy sparked a furious debate among locals that made national headlines. Some residents felt that it was unfair for the library to shun Christmas decor when it celebrates a variety of other traditions, religions, and cultures. Even one of the library's supervisors, Lisa Desmond, disagreed with the decision, writing in a Facebook post that in her nearly 30-year career, she'd never heard a complaint about the tree making anyone uncomfortable. But not everyone felt that the library's decision was an attack on Christmas. In a scathing, profanity-ridden Facebook post, Dedham's Human Rights Commissioner Diane Lord mockingly referred to the Christian God as a magic sky daddy and called Desmond a selfish B-word. She accused Desmond of endangering people's lives, claiming that the supervisor's complaints led to harassment against community members. Loud went on to call the Christmas tree supporters trash and terrible people, and she accused them of being hateful individuals who claimed to believe in Christ. She also wished great suffering on each and every one of them. Shortly after posting the inflammatory tirade, Loud resigned from her position. Over 100 people attended the monthly Board of Library Trustees meeting to make sure that their views were known. The Christmas tree ban was reversed, and the trees were put on display at both of the library's locations, but the topic remains hotly debated, and it's unclear what the future holds. And at number 1, Linda Merhe. In 2015, 40-year-old public servant Linda Merhe from Australia allegedly sent $30,000 to the Islamic State terrorist organization, also known as ISIS, and she was arrested for the crime 3 years later in early 2018. She was accused of transferring the funds in 5 separate transactions via Western Union over a 9-month period. At the time of her arrest, officials said that there was no evidence to suggest that Merhe was involved in planning a domestic terror attack. The bust came as part of a counter-terrorism sting called Operation Pekin. Federal Police Detective Superintendent Ben McQuillan confirmed that Merhe's case was linked to 2 previous arrests that were made as part of the operation, but he declined to give any more information than that. In fact, authorities released very few details in the case to the public. Merhe spent nearly 2 years in jail fighting the case and was ultimately acquitted. After her release, she learned that she had lost her job. She filed an unfair dismissal claim against the government, but because there's a 3-week deadline for these types of applications, her claim was thrown out. If you worked for a high-ranking public official who exploited vulnerable community members, would you blow the whistle on their abuse of power at the risk of becoming their next target? Or would you stay silent to avoid potentially life-ruining backlash? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.